start the webinars. Maybe we have hordes of public waiting to
Yes.
speak.
I don't know.
Are we ready?
Mhm.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Finance and Audit Committee, March 6th special meeting. This is a hybrid meeting with Finance and Audit Committee members, city staff, and members of the public participating in the downtown conference room and participating remotely. First, we'd like to take roll call. I'd like to introduce staff and Finance and Audit Committee members present. And we can actually introduce.
Sure.
So,
Administrative Services Director, Brittany Mello.
Interim Finance and Budget Manager, Ronnie Singh.
Management Analyst, Adrian Patino, and then on Zoom.
On Zoom, you have the interim finance director, Marvin Davis.
Hi, this is the senior accountant Lee.
and next, we'd like to go around the room and introduce the members of the Finance and Audit Committee.
I'm Susanna Hill.
Matt Normington.
Carol Long.
Mike Timos. And Brian Westcott. Let's see. So, staff liaison, Adrian, would you please provide instruction to the Finance and Audit Committee and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Westcott and the members of the Finance and Audit Committee. Welcome to everyone to the March 6th special meeting of the Finance and Audit Committee. Thank you for your attendance. Staff will be engaging in webcams and microphones to make presentations and to respond to members of the Finance and Audit Committee. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on an item on tonight's agenda, after the chair calls for public comment on the item that you wish to speak on, for virtual participants, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. For those who are calling in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9. And for those in person, please complete a speaker card and bring it to our desk. That concludes the instructions. I return the meeting to the chair.
All right, next order is the agenda review. Any changes to the agenda? All right, we'll proceed then. First order of business is under the consent calendar, the Finance and Audit Committee may take action to approve routine business items in one motion unless a Finance and Audit Committee member, city staff, or a member of the public requests that an item be discussed or continued to a later date. Staff liaison, Adrian, do we have any public comment on the consent calendar?
For members of the public who would like to provide a public comment on this agenda item, if you are participating virtually, please engage the raised hand feature. If you are on a cell phone or landline, please press *9. And if you are in person, please complete a speaker card and return it to our desk. I do not see any requests for public comment at this time.
Very good. Okay, first, next order is to approve the December 15, 2022 Finance and Audit Committee special meeting minutes. They were attached in the package. Any comment on the meeting minutes? All right. I know we developed a work plan as part of that, but so does anyone move to approve?
I move to approve.
Second?
Sure, I'll second that.
All right, it's passed. Sorry, I should have, well, we could, is that okay? I completed the motion to approve.
I can state it.
Okay, go ahead.
Motion to approve the December 15th, 2022 Finance and Audit Committee special meeting minutes.
We have to do it again. I'll approve. I'll motion to approve.
Second.
All right,
All in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, it's passed. All right, next is regular business. Under regular business, Finance and Audit Committee considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Finance and Audit Committee approval. The first business item is to review the December 31st, 2022 investment report and recommend receipt by City Council. First, I'd like to introduce Interim Finance Director Marvin Davis to introduce the item and staff to make presentations. Marvin?
Good evening, Chair Westcott and members of the committee as well as staff. And this item here is the December 31st, 2022 investment report. And we will just give a brief review of the staff report. And then we perhaps will look at the table, maybe attachment A, and then we will perhaps take questions if there's some questions. So this portfolio here is as of December 31st, 2022. And the total amortized costs of the portfolio is 183.6 million. And you can see the different investments that the city is carrying. Lathe, the local agency investment fund, it's only about 5 million. And if you recall, when we started moving money amount, that balance was about 40 or 50 million. So what we're doing is we're resizing the portfolio. So we'll make sure we take advantage of longer term securities. So right now, this particular portfolio here, underneath the performance, the portfolio is consistent with the policy. We are trying to keep up with the 2-year Treasury note underneath performance comparison. And you see we're pretty much there. You know, our weighted average return of the portfolio is about 2.41 compared to 2.46. So we're pretty much there. Also, we'll back up a little bit. You notice the ESG scale. This is the environmental social governance scale. This is something that we have been focusing on. And you notice that it continues to improve. We went from a 2.76 to a 2.69. Now, these are our corporate bonds. And so this is demonstrating that the investments we're choosing are still consistent with that scale. And so that's the kind of the comparison there. So overall, the portfolio is meeting its expectations, and you had mentioned one council committee member, you had mentioned regarding the fair value basis. As you can see, the portfolio itself is less than the fair value, about 5.6 million less. And this is simply because as interest rates rise, the bonds are being issued at a higher interest rate. Therefore, the ones that you're holding has a less fair value. There's a lesser fair value on the ones that you're holding. However, the city holds its bonds to the duration, so we won't lose any money. And so the portfolio is doing good. And I'm looking at attachment A here. Now you can kind of see the assets that are being managed. And so incidentally, staff also has issued an RFP for a new investment advisor. And so we're going through the process now of ensuring, of selecting, it may even be the same one, but however, we're going through the RFP process now of selecting an investment advisor. But Insight is doing a great job. So that's pretty, I don't have any more on the particular portfolio at this time. If there are any questions.
Okay. After you.
Yes, go ahead.
So I know we mentioned that the yield is around 2.4% now. And so we're sort of hitting that target or goal. Have we done any benchmarking with sort of other cities on what their yield is for investments?
I haven't done any benchmarking our yield is kind of consistent with our policy guidelines. But I can pretty much, I can pretty much tell you that any city that is sizable in terms of us, the way we have moved our assets from longer term, we're pretty much keeping up with it. No, we're keeping up with it. The idea is that we'll keep up with those 2-year treasuries, so I think it's doing good.
You did mention one comparison to city issued bonds in general, I think earlier.
Yes. Right now, we don't have any muni bonds in our portfolio now. All we have is government bonds and corporate bonds. We don't have any city bonds in our portfolio. So we could look at city bonds, but currently right now we just don't have any. We're not holding any muni bonds in our portfolio.
Do muni bonds really meet our criteria, given that they have a spotty track record?
That's probably why we don't have any.
Yeah. Okay. I have a couple catch-up questions. It may not be possible, but has the uncertainty about Congress raising the debt ceiling and how it's affecting the quality of US instruments affected our portfolio? I don't think we have much flexibility, but what do you think about that? Sort of
I don't
getting out
know.
of government bonds.
Yeah. I don't know how much the debt ceiling really impacts our portfolio.
Right.
The thing that kind of impacts our portfolio is the federal government continually kind of raising the federal funds borrowing rate. And so as the federal funds borrowing rate goes up, then the 30-year mortgage ticks up, and then all of the other agencies tick up behind it. So that's the kind of rate that kind of affects us the most.
So we're more heavy in mortgage-backed securities than we are in US federal instruments.
Yeah, we don't have, we're not holding mortgage-backed securities. Our portfolio is government bonds, government agencies like the Fannie Mae, Freddie Macs, corporate bonds. We just bought a big bond from, I think it was Target. One of the big bonds was Target. So like when you look at page E-1, like in your handout, so you look at page E-1, we'll get into the weeds a little bit.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah, you can see the bonds that we're kind of carrying.
Mhm.
These are big guys, Toyota Motor Credit, John Deere, these are big guys here that.
No, I love our corporate bonds. I'm just wondering if there's any sense that we might back out of treasury securities a bit, given that the payment is sometimes in question every time Congress has a hiccup.
Yeah, but
I don't think we've got any flexibility to, but I wanted to ask.
Yeah. The agencies, these guys are backed. It would take a whole lot for one of these guys to default. It would take a whole lot for one of these guys to default.
Well, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. When we look at the ESG rating,
Yeah.
I have two questions about those. It looks like we have an Insight ESG rating, but isn't there a more general one coming out of the FASB? Is theirs just aligned with that one?
That's a good question. I looked at ESG, and right now I don't think there's an accounting standard on ESG. Because we don't follow FASB, we kind of follow GASB, but I don't think there's an accounting standard for ESG. I think it's kind of broker to broker,
All
yeah.
right.
But you know what? That's a good question, because at some point, maybe GASB will get in there and say, hey, we kind of need to standardize. One guy says ESG is this, and another guy says it's this, right? So GASB might get in there and standardize this.
And so if somebody does standardize it, and I know that there are bigger groups that are rating on ESG than Insight advisors. So I just wondered how much.
Yeah. Standard & Poor's. I want to say Standard & Poor's, will get you an ESG for a fee based upon your portfolio. Moody's will do it for you based upon a fee, you know.
And then I have one other question, which is, I looked into it a little, it seems like, as the ESG rating improves on a corporate borrower, that they get better terms when they borrow, which means that we're gonna face a trade-off between return and ESG rating. I wonder, where do we hit the, where do we hit the top of the slope? Do we have any notion of that?
You know, that's a good question. Trade-off between yield and
The more we push up the ESG to a better one, our yield is gonna go down because those borrowers are advantaged in the market.
Yeah.
They get better
Now,
terms.
this is an opinion, but right now there's a lot of controversy with ESG.
there
That's
is-
what it comes down to.
That's true. but-
And in fact, there's some lawsuits from different places where they're concerned about trying to link to ESG because it might affect your return. So we actually had something in the work plan to look at this. But right now, I think we're not necessarily, the city is not really, they're looking still to maximize yield. Right, and try to keep within the ESG. That was my understanding from the presentation.
Okay, yeah, it's just when he noticed our
Right.
ESG had improved, I thought, well, that's good, but has it affected our yield yet?
Yeah, our portfolio guidelines, safety, liquidity and yield, the three guy.
Right.
Okay,
But
all right.
right now, I don't think it's affecting too much. But you make a good point because, the more corporations try to boost that ESG, it's going to impact yield. The more they try to assign a rating to it, it's going to impact yield. But I think we're pretty solid in terms of the as you notice on our page E-1, we have one bond that's BBB+. And Dave and I were talking about it. It still meets the guidelines of the portfolio, but we're watching. We're always in compliance to the policy. We're always in compliance to the policy.
Is BBB+ really out of range for us? It seems like a reasonable rating for us to buy.
Yeah, it's cheaper, it's reasonable, and it'll get you a little bit higher yield too. So, but yeah, we're still within the policy. It's still investment grade. It's investment grade. So yeah, that's our portfolio. Corporates, we got about 49.3 million in our corporates. So we are, we're doing good. We're keeping the overall performance of the portfolio consistent. I'm making sure I'm balancing what we're leading in late versus investing long term. And then the biggest thing, we're making sure that we have enough liquidity to cover 6 months of budget. That's kind of like, cover 6 months of budget. So that's those are some very good questions. And
Okay.
so
Let me
Yeah.
just ask, are there any other clarifying
Mhm.
questions from the committee? No. Okay. Adrian, do we have any public comment?
For members of the public who wish to provide public comment on this item, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen. If you are connecting virtually, please press *9 if you are calling in from a landline or a cell phone. And if you are in person, please complete a speaker card and return it to our desk. Seeing no request for public comment.
Okay. Then staff liaison Adrian, please state the motion.
Motion to recommend receipt by City Council of the December 31st, 2022 investment report.
Okay, do I have a motion and a second for the stated motion?
Sure, I'll motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right,
Thank you, committee.
all right. So Adrian, you took the role, we had the role, and then moving on, the second regular business item is the review of the annual comprehensive financial report, the ACFR, and recommend receipt by city council. I'd like to introduce the management analyst to introduce the item.
All right, thank you, committee. So the city of Menlo Park is very proud to present our annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year 2021-2022. In this presentation, we'll be touching on what the annual comprehensive financial report is in terms of its components and the compliance associated with it. We'll also be touching on the certificate of achievement that the city earned for last year's ACFR. We'll also be touching on the financial statements within the ACFR, our audit results, some highlights, as well as the supplemental information section, and showing where this report can be accessed by the public. So the annual comprehensive financial report is as its title and name implies, a comprehensive financial report, which includes the city's financial reports and independent auditors statement, and some statistical and background information to help contextualize the city's financial position and performance. So a couple of compliance pieces that the ACFR helps to fulfill are listed here. So we have the state financial transaction report, as well as the federal single audit, the 2022 GO bond annual report, and the Governmental Accounting Standards Board Statement 34. So within the ACFR itself, we have the introductory section, which is comprised of the transmittal letter signed by our city manager and assistant city manager, which presents the ACFR to the community and to any concerned other organizations or members of the public. We also include the city's organizational chart and a list of its principal officials in that section. Next, and kind of like the main meat and potatoes of the ACFR is the financial section, which includes the independent auditor's report, as well as the management discussion and analysis section, which can be thought of as sort of like an executive summary of the ACFR, which summarizes the key kind of financial figures and statements within it. After that, we have the basic financial statements. Then we have notes and required supplementary information to those statements. And lastly, we have the statistical section, which includes some select non-financial and demographic information that is unaudited and kind of intended to help contextualize everything else that's included within the ACFR. So moving on to the certificate of achievement in the for the prior year ACFR, fiscal year 2021, the Government Finance Officers Association presented to the city of Menlo Park its certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting. This award is kind of intended to reward local governments who go above and beyond the minimum requirements that are stipulated by GAAP and by GASB in the spirit of providing a transparent and easy to understand ACFR. So the city is very proud to receive this reward and is submitting this year's ACFR as well. And we do believe that this year's version of the report is also in line with those expectations, and we anticipate to receive it once again for this year's report. So moving on to the financial statements. Within the ACFR, there are some governmental-wide financial statements, such as the statement of net position and the statement of activities, which provide kind of a broad overview of the city's financial position. It reports on capital assets, long-term debt, liabilities. We also include basic fund financial statements, which summarizes near-term inflows and outflows of resources for different funds, and provides the balances of resources available at the end of the fiscal year. And kind of our last section here is the notes to those basic financial statements, which is made up of disclosures that kind of help to ensure that we're providing a complete financial picture. It includes things like a summary of the city's accounting policies, the city's investments and the city's cash position, as well as things like the post-employment benefits. Moving on to the audit results, our auditors rendered an unmodified and clean opinion on the city's financial statements, stating that this financial statements present fairly in all material respects, the respective financial position of governmental activities, business type activities for each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the city. On their report for internal controls, the auditor found one material weakness related to the financial reconciliation process and one significant deficiency related to correcting journal entries. After management reviewed the audit findings, we responded with these findings being primarily due to staff turnover and difficulty of implementation with new accounting standards, which were implemented this year, namely GASB 87, which is related to lease accounting. As a result, the city is adjusting its internal processes and is implementing software to address these concerns and correct these findings. So some financial highlights from the ACFR. The city's net position, which is an indicator of its overall financial state, increased year over year, 28.18 million to 529.93 million. Total revenues increased by 22.54 million and total expenses decreased by 3.45 million. General fund revenues and other financing sources increased by 9.09 million to 65.63 million, while expenditures and other financing uses increased by 9.79 million to 69.63 million. The general fund's unrestricted balance decreased by $4 million year over year to 34.2 million, while compared to a budgeted deficit of 7.9 million. Some more highlights, kind of zooming in on the city's net position. You can see in this kind of stacked chart here, the composition of the city's net position and how that has kind of grown year over year. And this table here kind of summarizes the city's governmental fund balances and how that's trended year over year. Two of the big call outs in this slide are the measured T debt services, where the net change in fund balance is just under 16 million. And that's in part due to the refunding of 2012 general obligation bonds, as well as the new issuance of 2022 general obligation bonds of 14.32 million. The other fund of note here is the other governmental funds, which increased by 17 million year over year. And this is primarily driven by special revenue funds, which includes things like American Rescue Plan funds, in lieu community amenities, funds for bayfront mitigation. And touching on the supplemental and statistical information section of the ACFR, this provides some trend data and some unaudited non-financial information to help kind of further contextualize the city's financial position. So in this section, you'll find, for example, some tables that will summarize things like the governmental fund balances for the prior 10 fiscal years, demographic and economic statistics for the city and for the county as well, and a list of the city's principal employers. So the ACFR will be available on the city's website along with prior year's reports at menlopark.gov/ACFR.
And I will add that the ACFR that was shared with the agenda at the time, the agenda needed to be posted for the Brown Act requirements. That was still a final draft. And I'm happy to share that we did receive the final draft just probably an hour ago.
Yeah.
So that's the version we will be presenting to the city council at the March 14th meeting.
Just as a quick clarifying, were there any significant changes between in the final draft?
Yeah, that's a
Okay.
great question. So the difference between the final draft that we presented to you and the finalized version that city council will be seeing
Right.
are pretty minor. They're mostly some cosmetic changes to the table of contents, for example, and then some smaller changes such as the composition of the general fund balance, not the ending balance. That is still the same as what we presented to you, but some dollars have been shifted around between categories. So it's mostly minor, kind of mostly cosmetic changes between the version that we provided and what city council will be seeing on the 14th of March, I believe.
Okay, very good. All right, well, thank you for that, and I might add congratulations on the awards too. That's, you know, in this time of COVID and change in staff, that's a significant achievement. So now, any clarifying questions from the committee on the AFR? Yes, go ahead.
I did have a question on just the significant deficiency and material weakness, because I think we heard a similar issue last year that also related to leasing. Is it the same issue where it was a leak, but it got recognized as something on the balance sheet, or yeah, or was it another issue? Just kind of wanted to figure out.
I can address that. No, these are different findings. So these are new findings. The other findings were pretty much taken care of. Right, Ying? These are new findings, right?
That was my question.
That was your question? All right. Any additional questions from the committee? All right,
Yeah, just. sorry.
Okay, yes,
Just
go ahead.
like the highlights, it's pretty amazing that total revenues increased by
Yes.
22 million. What was the main driver for that?
I didn't take a look at the total. I know the total revenues about 17. A big part was the mitigation. A big part was the recreation in lieu fees. We got like about 9.5 million from a developer. We got about 4.5 million from ARPA, and then we got about another 3-4 million from Bayfront. Ying, is those the big ones, Ying?
Yes, those are from the special revenue funds.
So those won't be recurring revenues. These are
Okay.
one time.
So do you know what the increased revenue would have been without the non-recurring revenue? Like what's do you know what the revenue is on a sort of a recurring revenue perspective?
Our property taxes, typically we get about 5 million every year recurring property taxes. As long as we keep getting, it's hard to say because the excess ERAF, we've been getting it. It's been recurring. Don't know if it'll keep going, but the property taxes, that's pretty much a solid one there. The developer, we get decent developer charges, property in lieu, and I assume that since COVID is backed off, we should be getting those developer charges, I would think, kind of continually.
Yeah, from what I've seen
Yes.
on the development.
Yeah.
Would you remind me really fast, sales tax, roughly what percentage of revenue is it?
Our sales tax is roughly, I think it was about 6.5 million this year. Our sales tax is going to go back up. It's going to go back up. So on a percentage basis, I think it's maybe 10 to 15% or something like that.
Okay. Committee, any additional comments or questions? All right, then, Adrian, do we have any public comment?
For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide a public comment on this agenda item, please engage the raised hand feature at the bottom of your screen if you are connecting virtually. If you are dialing in from a landline or a cell phone, please press *9 now. And if you are in person, please complete a speaker card and return it to our desk. I'm seeing no request for public comment at this time.
Okay, very good. Then with that, why don't we, staff liaison, please state the motion?
Motion to recommend receipt by city council of the annual comprehensive financial report.
All right, do I have a motion and a second?
Make the motion.
Second,
You have the roll call then, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? So the motion is passed. Okay. Very good. Now we have one more final regular business item, and this is to select a vice chair for the committee. I'd like to introduce management analyst Adrian Patino to introduce the item.
All right, thank you, Chair Westcott. So with the kind of recomposition of the Finance and Audit Committee by City Council, whereby they removed 2 City Council members as participants and added in 2 residents and a City Council liaison instead. Our previous vice chair was City Council member Cecilia Taylor, who is no longer on the committee. So we have a vacancy for the vice chair position at this time. The committee has the option to postpone selecting a vice chair, especially given the recruitment cycle for committees will complete on April 7th. And the city council procedure, which governs how committees and commissions are structured and run, states that chairs and vice chairs are appointed annually at the May meeting or the earliest meeting
Great.
after May. So the committee does not have to select a vice chair at this time if it feels prudent not to.
And to clarify, we don't have a regular meeting or any meeting scheduled until after, I believe, April 30th.
Our next regular meeting is scheduled for April 20th at 5:30 p.m., which is a Thursday. So our
Okay.
regular meeting schedule is the 3rd Thursday of each quarter.
All right, so if we elect a vice chair, they'll serve for that one meeting. Okay. So let's take a survey. Would people like to nominate and elect a vice chairman or postpone it till the next session, the next
We
annual?
would only need a vice chair if you can't be here to lead the meeting, right?
Yes, and I that'll be my last meeting because I do term out, but I plan on being here for April 20th.
Just for curiosity, if there's an emergency in your life, what would happen? How would the meeting run? Surely there's a provision for that, right?
Well, that's a good question.
That's a great question. That line of the procedure is only 2 lines and it only says pretty much what I stated. So I think we'd have to ask the city clerk for guidance
Well,
on.
I would say the next most senior person just serve for that
Yeah,
one meeting. on the
or
off
we can
chance.
elect, and I would suggest maybe somebody who is termed out after the April 20th meeting. And do we have any?
I'm turned out, but I plan on reapplying.
yeah, I mean, my term is up too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if, well, no, some, like if you serve 2 terms, you can't reapply.
Oh, so it would be my second term if I.
Okay, so you're, everyone, see, I'm actually done.
Okay.
They throw me out. So, no, I was saying, we could elect, then we could still have an election if people are gonna continue, or asked to at least have the option to continue. So,
Could we provisionally name Commissioner Wong because she won't be taking the seat when the real election happens and just leave it at
Yeah,
that?
sure, we could do that, or we could elect Commissioner Wong for the interim, well, it's not interim, but vice chair.
Happy to serve for a meeting.
So let's do that, right? Would you, can we nominate you for, we'll nominate,
I'll self-nominate.
okay, for the vice chair, and we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. We have coverage on the 20th. If I win the lottery, I'll still come. Yeah, but no, I appreciate that. Okay. So that, let's see. I guess, any other business? Any other questions?
So we scheduled that special extra meeting in December so that we could dig in on the ESG question.
Right.
And now we're losing you, which,
But let's do this at the next meeting. Let's make sure we have the work plan.
Mhm.
And we go through those. And I'm not sure we can't, well, we'll see how we want to handle it. Because there are some things I did want to get started, and maybe we do that as a, I do that as a
lame duck.
lame duck, or as just a citizen.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that might, but I think the next meeting, we should address some of that work plan, and even though it could be overridden. You know, there's some good things that need to get done, and now with COVID. You know, kind of in the background, I think it's great that people came in person, and I think you can get a lot more done. So. All right, with that, do we have a motion to adjourn? I think we can adjourn, right? And thank you for your participation tonight, and thank you to the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Team.
Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of